Hi and welcome to I Heart Gardening. This is Nadine. Today I'm bringing you a container vegetable gardening video. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time because I have such a small yard. How can I grow some food in my yard when it's so small? My house faces south, but literally my front yard is just driveway. So this is my driveway garden. And what I've done here is I've got some large containers. They are self-watering containers. Because it is so hot up here, these pots are sitting on concrete. I did not want to be watering every day. So these containers are large enough that I can get 2-3 days without watering. And because it's so hot up here and gets full sun, it's a great location for growing tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers. So that's what I've got going on here. My next tip for container vegetable growing is planting varieties of plants that their size is suitable for containers. So you probably didn't want to be growing indeterminate tomatoes because you just won't have the space for them. But the varieties I have in here, I've got Romas, and you can see I've got quite a lot of ripe fruit there. I actually waited to make this video until some of my tomatoes had turned green. I've got some tiny Tims down here tucked in the space, and I have a tumbler tomato. I will say I'm not loving this tumbler tomato the way it looks by itself in this container. It would look better, I think, with another taller plant, but it is growing fruit, so I've left it. I can't argue with the production here. Tumbler tomatoes are quite a nice fruit. I enjoy eating them by themselves, or I'll pick lots of different varieties of my tomatoes and make a tomato salad with cucumbers, with the basil. This is another tumbler tomato here. It's in the pot with the Romas, so like the look of it I think is much better than by itself. I like to do flowers as well to have some pollinators. This year I had calendula in here. Calendula is kind of looking down, but now the sunflowers are starting to bloom. And this is my cucumber container. And at this point I've probably forgotten which varieties of cucumbers I've planted, but if I find a tag I'll let you know. Again, a tiny Tim tomato, just a nice size to tuck in. I have been eating cucumbers off here. The plant's been producing quite well. You can gain some space by growing up, otherwise these are going to grow along my driveway. This cucumber is a Patio slicer. And again, I've been eating some good cucumbers off of that one. I've got nasturtium in here. This one was absolutely beautiful in full bloom. Was a peach melba, kind of on the way out now, I think. Like I said, we had such hot temperatures for the last couple weeks. Things are starting to fade. And then in this container over here, I've got pepper and strawberries, and for some reason this plant combination is just working. Everything in here is growing really well. Strawberries are producing. This pepper plant is going nuts. There's like 7 fruit on here at least. It's loving the heat up here for sure. I started all my tomato and pepper plants inside the house as seedlings, and I had so many pepper plants I just ended up sticking them everywhere. So another kind of weird combination, zinnias and peppers, but again seems to be working. This is on the east side of the house, and these plants are happy here. It's a smaller container, so this one has been drying out. I have to keep vigilant in the watering this one, keep an eye on a lot closer, but what I ended up doing is just mulching the top of the pot. You have seen my mulch pile on the driveway there, and that'll help keep some of the moisture in. I've got a lot of containers on my front entrance, my front step. A lot of these are ornamentals, but I have stuck some edibles here and there. East facing only gets morning sun, maybe sun up until 1 p.m. So I've got some carrots in there. I had peas. Peas are kind of done now. So I've got a red leaf lettuce that actually the color of it is quite ornamental. Obviously late in the summer, this lettuce is grown quite tall because I haven't been picking on it as I should, but I've left it still edible. The leaves still good to eat on, not too bitter. In this container I have Swiss chard, and really I just haven't been harvesting on it like I should, because you want to eat the leaves. When the leaves start looking like this, they look a little unappetizing. So I think it's a leaf miner of some sort. I'm not sure, maybe you guys can help me out with that. Yeah. Or if you have any ideas on how to control this pest problem. Those kind of leaves I would just cut off, but there are new fresh leaves that are do look quite good. So I think really the key is just eating this stuff when it's young and fresh. Now I'm on the west side of my house, and this is just the skinny strip on the side of the house. Again, I'm looking to maximize where I have sun, and you can see the size of my gate there. It's really skinny, so that's really the width of my yard here. So I've got another container garden here. It gets the afternoon hot sun. I've got carrots here. I've grown carrots in containers before, and they do quite well. They're actually quite thick. I'll show you some carrot tops. There's one down there. I've got peppers here. Peppers are doing well. At the start of the growing season, I did have radishes in here, but once the radishes were finished, I pulled them all out, and now I'm just left with peppers. And I've forgotten which varieties of peppers I've planted. I started all of them indoors from seeds, and then once I started planting out, lost track of what I planted where. Again, I have another self-watering container. Really helps to hold moisture in here. And the other thing is I've potted it with a moisture control potting mix, and I think that does make quite a difference, because these have not, I haven't had an issue with these containers drying out at all. If I watered every 3 days, that's been pretty good. In this container I planted golden nugget squash and a couple of things. I guess this one doesn't climb. I've grown other squash that have climbed, and so I had a support here. Obviously didn't need it. But I've only had male flowers. I actually haven't had any fruit on here. So I'm not sure what's going on with this gold nugget here. Maybe you can help me out with that again. On this side of the house, I don't have any pollinators. Maybe that's it. Maybe next year I should be more diligent about trying to get some pollinators on this side of the house. Maybe that would help. I don't know. And then in this container, started out with radish. The radish came out. I have golden beets. Again, with my leafy greens, kind of like the Swiss chard. The leaves kind of look eaten up, and I don't know what kind of, that beet doesn't look very big. What kind of luck I'm going to have with beets this year. I'm going to say I'm going to have success with carrots, strawberries, tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. Beets not so much. And then when I pulled out the radishes, I put in beans and literally got just one bean plant. so not sure what's going to happen with that one bean. Again, another container of carrots, and I actually really like doing carrots in containers. You just have to make sure your container is tall enough. If you put containers in a short container, you're not going to get a very long carrots. You'll get little stubs. But the nice thing about doing carrots in containers is that it's in loose potting soil and very easy to pull out. I bought containers this year to match my siding, so I bought gray containers, but last year I did grow potatoes in here in 5-gallon pails. I actually made self-watering containers by doubling up the pails. Maybe I'll throw a picture up of potatoes. Now I'm into my backyard. It's north facing. I do get some sun up in this back corner. I have a very small yard and I don't have a dedicated vegetable garden growing space. I do edible landscaping, and I have made a separate video on that recently. So I do a lot of container gardening here as well. This is my brick patio, but I get a fair amount of sun here. So I do grow tomatoes on here. They do like the heat that radiates up from the bricks. Again, I've topped off the top of the pot with mulch just to help maintain some moisture and keep it evenly moist so I don't get blossom end rot on my tomatoes. This year I grew a couple different varieties. This one is yellow pear. It's grown nicely. Can't say I love the fruit. It's kind of mealy and not very sweet. Over here I've got sun golds, and sun golds are by far my favorite. They are so delicious. I will come out here and just eat these by themselves. I'll also put them in salads. They've grown very well for me. I think the sun golds will be something I always grow. I've got a basil pot down here. I'm growing 2 varieties of basil. This one is a container sized basil. And then I also have a lettuce leaf basil here as well. Sorry, my dog just eating all the fallen tomatoes. I had the basil pot initially growing on the deck where it didn't get as much sun, but because it's in a pot, I was able to move it down here where it's getting more sun and much happier and doing very well over here. I've got another tomato variety here. I think this is another new to me variety and can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I'll show you. I was getting blossom end rot on this tomato here, so I have to be much more careful about watering this one. And you'll notice I have it in a tomato cage as a support. Sometimes if you don't get all the branches growing up inside when they're young, you're not going to get them back inside after the branches have gotten a little older. So they've kind of flopped out of my pot, but they're still producing fruit down there, so I've left them. I just wanted to show you what my patio looked like. Even though I'm growing food on here, I still find it attractive. I actually don't mind sitting amongst the vegetables. The tomatoes to me actually smell pretty good. Last year I did grow cucamelon out here. Grew it up a trellis that I had on the back there. Grew beautifully. I ate lots of cucamelons. I'll see if I find a photo of that one. I didn't grow them this year because the cucamelons probably aren't my favorite to eat, even though I did have a lot of them. And I think this is the last area where I've got a container garden. It's up on my deck. This is on the north side of my house, so I've put the pots furthest away to the house to try and get some sun. But the choice of plant up here is different because it gets less sun. So I'm not growing any tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers up here. It's more the carrots or the leafy greens. So anything that grows a fruit you want in full sun, like those tomatoes and cucumbers. I say that, but then I have strawberries here. The strawberries I had grown in the ground last year, but my dog was eating them, so I found a way to get them up off the ground so they're safe from the dog. But then I had to worry about overwintering the strawberries in the containers. So actually, yeah, it worked. I left them in the containers, put the containers inside my garage, kept them off the ground. I put them inside the wheelbarrow wrapped in burlap, and my strawberry plants came back this year in the containers. So I've just attached these containers to my railing with actually just strips of Velcro. A little DIY there. So in the deck vegetable garden, I've got beets here. Beets not looking good. The leaves themselves look like they've been eaten, similar to the Swiss chard, and I don't think the roots are doing much better. This is my first try at beets in containers. Maybe if someone's had any experience with that, let me know. Again, the reason why I tried that is because the dog was pulling them right out of the ground. I'll see what I can come up with next year for beets. But the carrots in containers, this is a very tall pot. And I have grown carrots in here before, and they've done very well. Yeah, there's even carrots in here that can be picked now. What I haven't talked about yet is your potting mix. Just make sure you're using a potting mix, not soil from your garden. You want to keep it nice and light and fluffy. If you need to replace it every year, you don't have to. I would do that if you have diseased plants, totally replace the soil. But other than that, I might be topping up or adding some compost and some fertilizer. And I think that probably ends our garden vegetable tour for this year. Thanks, hope you got some good tips. See you again soon. Bye-bye.